The intral gym pulsed with life, a chaotic symphony of grappling thuds, dripping sweat, and sharp bursts of laughter that echoed off the padded walls. Fighters circled the mats, their movements a blend of precision and raw power, while the air hung heavy with the scent of effort and ambition. At the center of it all stood Darren, a young black belt with a swagger that matched his skill. His dark hair was slicked back, his gi crisp, and he twirled his belt with a flourish, the fabric snapping in the air like a whip. His eyes, glinting with mischief, landed on the woman mopping the floor nearby, her movements steady and unhurried. She was a fixture in the gym, as familiar as the punching bags or the worn-out sparring gloves, yet rarely noticed. Darren, never one to miss a chance for attention, grinned and called out, his voice cutting through the hum of the gym. "Hey, lady, you sure you're not lost? This is a dojo, not a janitor's convention." The room erupted in laughter, heads turning, some fighters pausing mid-drill to join in the mocking chorus. A few clapped, egging him on, their chuckles bouncing off the mirrored walls. The woman didn't flinch. She paused, her mop still in hand, and looked up at Darren. Her eyes, sharp and steady, met his with a quiet intensity that seemed to catch him off guard for a fleeting moment. A soft smile curved her lips, unperturbed, almost amused, before she returned to her work, the mop gliding across the floor with the same calm rhythm. The laughter died down, but Darren wasn't done. He thrived on the crowd's energy, their attention fueling his bravado. He sauntered closer, tossing his belt over his shoulder like a trophy. "Come on, why don't you show us your cleaning moves?" he teased, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "How about a spar? One light round. You tap, I stop." The gym exploded again, the laughter louder this time, phones slipping out of pockets as people angled for a better view. Some grinned, others exchanged uneasy glances, but the room buzzed with anticipation, ready for what they assumed would be a quick, humiliating show. Her name was Maria. Early 40s, Latina, lean and unassuming, she stood at average height, her faded cleaning uniform hanging loosely on her frame, her sneakers worn thin at the soles. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, strands of grey catching the fluorescent light. To the gym regulars, she was just the cleaning lady, a shadow who moved through their world, mopping sweat-stained floors and wiping down equipment while they trained. For years, she'd been there, quiet, observant, her presence as unremarkable as the hum of the air conditioner. But Maria was no stranger to this world. She'd watched every spar, every drill, her sharp eyes catching the subtle shifts of weight, the telegraphed punches, the overconfident stances. What no one knew, what no one had ever bothered to ask, was that Maria hadn't always been a janitor. Darren, still grinning, tossed her a pair of sparring gloves. They landed at her feet with a soft thud. "Let's go, Maria," he said, his tone half mocking, half curious, as if he couldn't quite believe she'd take the bait. The crowd formed a loose circle around the ring, phones raised, some recording, others whispering bets. Maria sighed, a quiet exhale that carried more weight than anyone realized. She set them up against the wall, peeled off her work gloves, and tied her hair back tighter. The room grew quieter as she stepped into the ring, her movements deliberate, unhurried. She didn't put on the gloves. Instead, she flexed her hands, her knuckles calloused in a way no one had ever noticed before. The bell rang, a sharp clang that cut through the tension. Darren moved first, all confidence, throwing a lazy jab to test her. Maria dodged, her body swaying to the side with an effortless grace that made a few eyebrows lift. He tried again, another jab, sharper this time. She sidestepped, her feet gliding across the mat, her balance perfect. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Wait, did she just use an inside parry?" One fighter muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That looked like Wing Chun," a woman added, leaning forward, her phone forgotten. Darren's grin faltered, his eyes narrowing. He wasn't laughing anymore. He lunged with a spinning kick, a flashy move meant to intimidate. Maria ducked low, her body folding under the arc of his leg, and with a quick, precise tap to his supporting leg, she sent him stumbling. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that seemed to suck the air from the room. In that moment, time seemed to pause, and Maria's past flickered like a montage in her mind. She was younger, clad in military combat gear, her movements sharp and disciplined as she trained hand-to-hand in a dusty courtyard. Then at a national self-defense seminar, her stance steady as she led a group through defensive maneuvers, her voice calm but commanding. Finally, in a dojo not unlike this one, she stood in a crisp karate gi, a black belt tied snugly around her waist, her instructor saluting her with pride. "One of the finest we've ever trained," he'd said, his words echoing in her memory as she blinked back to the present. Maria wasn't just a cleaner. She never had been. Darren, now visibly rattled, came at her harder, his movements aggressive, his punches wilder. He was flustered, his ego bruised, and it showed in every telegraphed swing. Maria blocked each strike with precision, her forearms absorbing the force, her body shifting to counter. Then, in one fluid motion, she stepped inside his guard, hooked his leg, and swept it clean out from under him. He hit the mat with a heavy thud, the sound reverberating through the silent gym. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The gym owner, a grizzled man who'd seen every kind of fighter pass through these doors, leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "No way. That's a brown belt reverse takedown, minimum." Darren lay there for a second, his chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. Slowly, he stood, his movements stiff, his bravado gone. He peeled off his gloves, his hands trembling slightly, and walked to Maria. The room held its breath as he bowed deeply, his head low. "I'm sorry, Maria," he said, his voice raw with sincerity. "You're incredible." Maria offered a small smile, reaching out to help him up. "Never judge a fighter by her uniform," she said softly, her words carrying a quiet power that silenced the room. Then, the applause started, slow at first, then building into a wave. Some stood, others clapped harder, and a few phones were still recording, capturing the moment that would change everything. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. Clips of Maria's swift dodges, her precise counters, and that final, flawless takedown spread across platforms, racking up views and comments. "Who is this woman?" one user demanded. "She's a legend." Another wrote. The gym's social media page exploded, and by noon, a new banner hung above the entrance, "Coach Maria, Women's Defense and Combat Instructor." When Maria walked in that day, mop in hand, the crowd parted. Heads bowed in respect, eyes followed her with a mix of awe and curiosity. She was no longer just the cleaning lady. She was a force, a reminder that true strength doesn't need to shout, it waits, quiet and unassuming, until the moment it must strike. They had mocked her because she was quiet, because her faded uniform and worn sneakers made her seem simple. They'd underestimated her, blind to the fire in her eyes, the calluses on her hands, the years of discipline etched into her movements. But Maria hadn't needed their validation. She'd known who she was, and in one spar, she'd shown them all. True strength doesn't boast. It doesn't need to. It proves itself in the ring, in the moment, when the world is watching and the odds are stacked against you. This is the kind of story we love to tell at Midnight Tales, where the underdog rises, the quiet shine, and the unexpected become unforgettable. If Maria's story hit you as hard as that takedown, smash that subscribe button on Midnight Tales and join us for more tales of grit, heart, and hidden heroes. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated? Tell us your story, and let's celebrate the moments when the world learns not to judge a book by its cover. Keep watching Midnight Tales for more stories that spark, inspire, and remind us all, the greatest fighters don't always wear their strength on their sleeves. Sometimes, they carry it in their hearts, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.